I've been around doing this for a long, long time. I don't always get it right, but I always take responsibility. When I get it wrong, I acknowledge I got it wrong. But my overarching objective, if we cannot make significant progress on racial equity, this country is doomed. It is doomed, not just because of African Americans, but because by 2040, this country is going to be minority white European. You hear me? Minority white European. And you guys are going to have to start working more with Hispanics, who make up a larger portion of the population than y'all do in terms of raw numbers. We're going to have to be working with a whole group of people that, in fact, are the single most diverse democracy in American history and anywhere in the world. And we got to figure out how to unify this country. And you've been the leaders of being able to do that. Not a joke.
Hi guys, welcome back to the channel. I wanted to talk about what's going on with Chicago in regards to illegal immigration, because I think it's a good illustration of how illegal immigration affects American citizens, in particular, Black American citizens who thought that this administration cared about them. And now they're finding out the hard way that that's not the case. Yet, many of them continue to vote Democrat at like a 90% rate. So I think this is a really big wake-up call for many people. And there's a lot that we can learn from what's going on in Chicago. So let's take a look.
More beds arrive at a downtown hotel. It's a hotel now offering shelter to 1,200 new arrivals, according to a city spokesperson for the Office of Emergency Management. Some staying here who endured dangerous treks from Venezuela tell us families are sharing rooms. And others nearby tell us they were turned away and told to go to a local police station. But some police stations are out of space too. That's apparently what happened in the 12th district. The owner of a Pilsen building is now offering shelter to 70 recent arrivals.
And we have babies. You know, we had a 3-month-old baby, several minors, in fact, several children already waiting for over a week for a location, for a shelter. It was just inhumane what we were witnessing.
Now the social services are kicking in and it's helping out, but I mean, the lack of coordination from the Fed to the state, from that state to our city is ridiculous.
Yesterday, Mayor Lori Lightfoot declared a state of emergency as the City Council committee approved $51 million for migrants assistance that now goes to the full council later this month. Alderman Pat Dowell chairs that committee and tells us 450 people are currently staying in police station lobbies.
To sleep on a floor in a police station is inhumane, and we have to treat people the way we want to be treated. See, we've got to be able to take care of those newly arriving people and also the ones that are here.
So the city is overrun with trying to accommodate illegal immigrants. And it's funny because Lori Lightfoot, the mayor who has since left, she had her last day, I think it was on Friday, she declared Chicago a sanctuary city as a dig to Republican governors like Greg Abbott, who run states with border towns. They're telling, this administration that they need to crack down on illegal immigration, that open borders is ridiculous, is ludicrous. And they were called racist. They were called bigots, xenophobes, for saying that our borders need to be secured rather than trying to appeal to voters and, trying to act as if you're some charitable administration letting everybody in without any vetting of people, without any restrictions. Just people fled to the border because under this administration, throughout their whole, campaign leading up to 2020, they were saying that they welcome everybody. So people fled to the border, and now this country is overrun, even with Title 42 in place, which was put in during the whole COVID era by Trump, that allowed more people to be turned away. Even with that, this country is unable to deal with the crisis, the illegal immigration crisis that is going on. So governors such as Greg Abbott, he said, okay, let's start sending people to your sanctuary. Okay, since we're racist and unwelcoming, we'll send them to you because you're accommodating, right? And then reality hit. So Lori Lightfoot started saying that Greg Abbott is, inhumane. What he's doing is inhumane. And it's like, no, this is the reality. If you can't deal with a fraction of people being sent to you, being bused to you, how do you think people in these border towns are coping? How do you think these states that are on the border, where they have border towns, are coping? And now you're getting your reality check. You're blaming Greg Abbott, but you need to be blaming this administration. And that's exactly what she ended up doing. She started saying that we've been begging, the Biden administration, the federal government, to help us. And she declared a state of emergency in anticipation of Title 42 ending.
Sadly, we don't expect the buses to stop arriving anytime soon. And importantly, we've seen in the last couple weeks a new surge in migrants coming to Chicago on a daily basis.
48 of today's arrivals were dispatched by the Texas governor. On average, 100 to 200 asylum seekers arrive in Chicago daily. When the surge began last fall, the federal dollars followed. Chicago receiving $5.5 million from FEMA. This spring, that number has dropped to $4 million. Why?
That's an interesting question.
While Lightfoot has blamed Governor Abbott of Texas, she's now signaling a lack of leadership and financial support from the White House.
We have made our disappointment known through the appropriate channels.
She says she'd like the feds to develop a larger plan to address the problem and give these asylum seekers a green light to work while they're here.
If we could put people to work legally, it would lessen the strain on all of our resources.
Those spending the night in this Loop facility are among the lucky ones. Police departments are also housing families fresh to Chicago, a last resort the mayor calls dangerous.
We don't have any more space. I cannot emphasize that enough.
This emergency declaration also allows the mayor to ask Governor Pritzker to mobilize the Illinois National Guard. She says at this point they are not making that request. Lightfoot says she has been in touch with Brandon Johnson's team as he takes over as Chicago mayor next Monday to make sure they are up to speed. And at the request of some aldermen, her team has explored whether or not some vacant big box stores may be able to take in some of these migrants. But she says the demands for that kind of a property, think places to sleep and bathe and eat, none of them meet those prerequisites.
So let's take a look at this story, a classic example of how the citizens are not being put first, how America is not being put first. These Chicago residents have had enough. So Chicago residents shred local politicians over plans to house illegal immigrants at closed high school. Chicago residents condemned local leadership last week for plans to house illegal immigrants in a shuttered high school in the neighborhood. Chicago is one of many cities overwhelmed by illegal immigrants seeking asylum amid crisis of America's southern border. During a May 4th community meeting at South Shore International College Preparatory High School, local residents expressed their outrage at the proposal of housing hundreds of migrants in an already struggling area. What's important is that we really establish this is humanitarian crisis and we are here, Chicago Chief Engagement Officer Nubia Williams said, as the crowd jeered in opposition. The crowd weren't having that. They're like, excuse me, we live in a humanitarian crisis every day. Our inner cities are overrun by criminals. We don't want to get shot as we walk down the street. Walmarts are closing. Targets are closing. Our local businesses are fleeing from this city, so jobs are going. They're living in a humanitarian crisis every day of their lives. Homelessness is out of control. While this crisis may constitute an emergency for the city of Chicago, it does not constitute an emergency for the South Shore community, Alderman Michelle A. Harris said. When it comes to the total number of people at South Shore at any given point in time, it is fluid. A local leader told the audience, "We would start with 250 to 500. The audience could be heard yelling in response. How could you do that without consulting us? One visibly outraged resident responded. I'm concerned with safety in the area. Another could be seen telling the local council. ABC 7's footage showed Executive Director of Constitutional Policing Tina Stagg announcing that police will be stationed to oversee the migrants at this facility 24 hours a day. ABC 7 itself observed, however, that those are exactly the kind of services Southside residents say they have begged for and been denied. There you go again. The citizens, the residents have been put last. They have been begging for more police on the streets in this Democrat-run, crime-ridden city. And they were denied. They were told, oh, that costs too much. But when it comes to illegals now, the red carpet is rolled out. Now, obviously, I've got nothing against people seeking asylum and trying to seek, safety here and go through the proper channels to do that. I have nothing against that. I'm an immigrant myself. But there has to be some sort of limit. There has to be some sort of way of securing our borders and making sure that it is done properly. We don't reward people breaking the law. We shouldn't reward that. But that's kind of what's happening now, because we've presented ourselves as a country with open borders. Everybody's welcome. That was the message during the lead up to the election, because they wanted to act as if anybody who talks about securing borders is racist. Trump talking about building the wall was racist. All these racist Republicans funding the wall being built. They demonized that. And now they're dealing with the consequences of not securing the border.
Inside South Shore International College Prep.
Excuse me, a question was asked.
Hundreds of residents gathered to hear from city leaders on a plan to move migrants to the old South Shore High School.
I think what's important is that we really establish that this is a humanitarian crisis, and we're here. You're not supposed to interrupt. You're not supposed to interrupt.
Members of Mayor Lightfoot's administration were supposed to give a presentation, but were interrupted by angry outbursts. And decided to move directly to residents' questions. One being how many asylum seekers would be housed here.
We were looking at a potential phased approach, utilizing the first floor first only. What that means, you can fit up to, we'd start with 250, 500.
I'm ticked off. You're doing this wrong. You're doing it wrong. 250 people? Give me a break.
We have several home-based daycares. Who are they? Who are we going to be dealing with? I'm directly across the street. I have to fear for the children that I care for.
The Chicago Police Department will put 24/7 officers at that location.
The city says it must identify respite sites to relieve police stations where some 300 migrants are currently living. A mass influx with hundreds more expected to Chicago over the next several weeks.
I think it would be very fair for every homeless immigrant that you bring in, that you scoop up one of the homeless individuals in our community. I think that would be fair. And that you also provide that bed, that shower, that meal.
Local aldermen even upset.
I stand beside them, meaning my community, the 8th Ward, strongly voice my opposition.
All indications are that this is a done deal, and I think that is what's made the community even more upset about this.
Most of the residents that are dealing with this are black, and they vote Democrat at a 90% rate. They have to sit there and hear about this school being repurposed, not for the local community, but for illegal immigrants. Even though for the locals, it wasn't done, it was denied. It's just been left there empty. They're hearing about, these centers for illegal immigrants essentially being given 24-hour security, while the residents, their streets, are left without police presence, while criminals run that city. So again, they are told in no uncertain terms that they are going to be put last, that illegal immigrants, people who are not citizens of this country, are being put first. And this is a huge wake-up call to this people who vote for these Democrat mayors and, this administration. A huge wake-up call. And the clip that I showed you at the beginning, Joe Biden basically said to a group of black leaders that y'all better connect with Hispanics, letting you know that the people coming into this country are going to be the voters of tomorrow. They're going to be the new majority. He basically said that. He said they're going to be the new majority. So therefore, they are their priority. The black community only makes up 13% of the population, if that. So they don't care about your vote as much as people think they do. They don't care about your vote. They care more about the voters of tomorrow, many of whom are going to be, the illegal immigrants of today. Democrats are flooding this country with illegals so that they have future voters. That's why Biden put out there 400,000 in, reparations because of 2 years of being separated at the border and things of that nature. Remember when he proposed that? And many black people were asking, well, where's our reparations? You're giving illegal immigrants reparations. You're proposing that, but you haven't proposed an actual sum of money to give to, black Americans. Again, this should be a huge wake-up call to not give your vote away to a party that doesn't care about you. And I'm not saying that Republicans, all perfect and, that they're not all the same. I'm not even saying that. I understand why I'm actually more of an independent, but I acknowledge when policies are good. And when Trump was in power, he did a lot more for black people than this administration is doing. And when our borders are secured, that helps, that benefits the American citizen, including people of color, especially people of color. But people don't want to acknowledge that. One resident could be seen demanding that every homeless migrant you bring in, that they also administer to one of the homeless individuals in our community, arguing, I think that would be fair. Yes, it would be. But unfortunately, the homeless people in that city are not a priority. They're not a priority. Why would you do that without asking us about our input to the people who live right in front of the South Shore School? 250 people, give me a break, one local Chicago resident said. Again, if you question who are these people, have they been vetted before coming into the country? We have, trafficking that has been enabled because the borders are not secure. We have fentanyl, a fentanyl crisis in this country that, again, has been enabled because our borders have not been secured. But when you ask questions about who is coming into the country, you're considered a racist. Now, these are people of color asking these same questions because they live right in front of that school. But, there's going to be security there apparently, so maybe that makes up for it, right? Where is the money coming from? Another attendee reportedly asked. Migrants don't pay taxes. I understand helping people, but you have to start with your own home. Why don't you have those resources with what's happening here? One resident even shouted, build the wall, make a border. The wall that was called racist, by the way. And now people are learning the hard way. They call things racist, they call things bigotry, so that it deflects from their lack of action. Democrats didn't have a plan. They just wanted to get votes. And they duped people because they said, we are the party that cares about including everybody. We're the party who, cares about everybody regardless of your skin color. We want to welcome everybody. They presented themselves that way. And the evil Republicans were the ones who wanted to turn away people at the border. And now we're learning the hard way that policies matter. So this administration is in denial about what is going on at our border. And over the next few weeks, we're going to see the repercussions of Title 42 ending. Now, they have implemented some measures, and it's Title 8. So they're going to get stricter now. But again, at the border itself, they're saying that it's going to be hard to implement Title 8 for certain groups. It's not going to be as easy as they're making out.
An individual who is removed under Title 8 is subject to at least a 5-year ban on re-entry into the United States and can face criminal prosecution if they attempt to cross again. That those who do not use lawful pathways to enter the United States are ineligible for asylum.
Title VIII is the immigration policy that was used in the United States for decades until the pandemic. And we spoke with a retired Homeland Security agent who worked under Title VIII for 20 years. He told us he's skeptical if border authorities will actually be able to enforce the stricter consequences.
The idea is that they're supposed to go back to enforcing the law, but the sheer numbers of them coming at once, it's almost impossible.
So they're saying that the border is relatively calm with the ending of Title 42 on Thursday. So it wasn't as bad as they thought it was going to be initially, and that maybe the surge has already happened. But time will tell. So let me know what you think. Thanks for watching. Take care of yourselves, and I'll see you in the next video.